Commander Jake Martinez stared at the screen in front of him. The signal was weak, but it was there. Someone was calling for help in the dark space near the dying star. "Sir, that's a bad place to be," said Lieutenant Alex Thompson from his pilot's seat. "That star is going to explode soon. Nothing should be flying that close." Jake looked at the data again. The neutron star was pulling everything toward it with deadly force. Whatever ship was out there was trapped. They could not escape on their own. "Can you tell what kind of ship it is?" Jake asked his science officer. Dr. Sam Rodriguez worked at his station for a few minutes. "It's not human, sir. The metal is different. The shape is strange, too. I think it might be Zephyrian." Jake knew about the Zephyrians. They were smart aliens who made amazing technology, but they were also weak and peaceful. They never fought wars or caused trouble. Most people in space respected them. "How many are on board?" Jake asked. "The signal says 12 life forms," Sam replied. "They're alive, but their ship is dying. Power is almost gone." Jake walked to the front window of his ship, the UES Horizon. Outside, space looked normal, but he knew that just a few hours away, a star was eating everything around it. Any ship that got too close would be crushed or burned. "Sir," said Chief Engineer Lisa Parker over the radio, "I've been listening to their distress call. They're speaking in standard galactic language. They say they are diplomats. They were studying the star when it started to collapse faster than expected." Jake thought hard. His orders were clear. Explore new systems and stay safe. Don't take big risks. But 12 people were going to die if he did nothing. "Lisa, can we get them out?" he asked. There was a long pause. "Maybe, but it would be very dangerous. We'd have to get close to the neutron star. Our ship might not survive." Alex turned around in his seat. "Sir, with respect, this is crazy. We have 38 people on our ship. We can't risk everyone for 12 aliens we don't even know." Jake understood Alex's point. It made sense. A good commander protects his own crew first. But Jake had always believed that helping others was what made humans special. "Tell me about the rescue plan," Jake said to Lisa. Lisa came to the bridge a few minutes later. She carried a tablet with drawings and numbers. "We have new quantum tether technology that we've never used in real conditions. It's like a very strong rope made of energy. We could attach it to their ship and pull them away from the star." "What's the risk?" Jake asked. "High," Lisa said honestly. "The gravity near the star is incredibly strong. Our engines would have to work at maximum power. We might lose engine control. The tether might break and snap back at us. The radiation could kill us all." Dr. Rodriguez looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm getting more signals from their ship. Their life support is failing. They have maybe 2 hours left." Jake closed his eyes and thought. 2 hours to decide. 2 hours to save 12 lives or protect 38. "What do you think they would do?" Jake asked his crew. "If we were trapped and they found us?" "Probably run away," Alex said. "Most species don't take risks for strangers." "But sir," said Communications Officer Katie Williams, "the Zephyrians helped us before. When we first met them, they gave us star maps and technology. They didn't ask for anything back." Jake remembered the stories. When humans first traveled to distant stars, they met the Zephyrians. The aliens had been kind and helpful. They shared knowledge that saved many human lives. "Lisa, how long do we need to get ready?" Jake asked. 1 hour to set up the quantum tether, then maybe 30 minutes to reach them and get them out. And if something goes wrong? "We all die together," Lisa said simply. Jake looked at each member of his crew. Alex was worried but ready to follow orders. Lisa was excited about using new technology. Sam was concerned about the aliens. Katie was hopeful they could help. "I'm not ordering anyone to do this," Jake said. "This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to leave the bridge can go now. No shame in staying safe." Nobody moved. "Are you all crazy?" Alex asked with a small smile. "This plan is impossible." "Maybe," Jake said. "But impossible is what humans do best." He sat in his command chair and pressed the ship-wide communication button. "Attention all crew. We have a rescue mission. It's dangerous and we might not come back. But 12 people are going to die if we don't try. I need everyone at their best. We're going to do something impossible today. The ship came alive with activity. Engineers prepared the quantum tether. Medical staff got ready for alien patients. Pilots checked their systems twice. Jake opened a channel to the alien ship. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Martinez of the human ship Horizon. We're coming to get you. Hold on. A weak voice replied in careful English. Human ship, this is Ambassador Kethvar. We did not expect anyone to come. The danger is too great. Ambassador, humans are pretty good with danger. Just keep your people alive for 1 more hour. Commander, if you do this thing, my people will remember. The Zephyrian Collective does not forget those who risk everything for strangers. Jake smiled. Just stay alive, Ambassador. We'll worry about the rest later. The Horizon turned toward the dying star and began the most dangerous rescue mission in human history. 15 years had passed since the rescue at the neutron star. Jake Martinez was no longer a commander on a small exploration ship. Now he was Admiral Martinez, and he represented all of humanity in the Galactic Coalition. He sat in a huge meeting hall on the planet Ethros Prime, home of the Zephyrians. Around him were representatives from dozens of alien species. Everyone looked scared. The reason for their fear had a simple name: the Devourers. They have destroyed the Kellian system, announced General Thaxmore of the Krillian Empire. His 4 arms gestured at the holographic display showing empty space where 3 planets used to be. 12 billion people, gone in 2 days. Admiral Martinez felt sick. The Devourers were machines, ancient and hungry. They ate entire worlds to make more of themselves. They had been sleeping somewhere in dark space for thousands of years. Now they were awake and moving toward the center of the galaxy where most people lived. How many systems have we lost? Asked Counselor Vash from the Ethereal Collective. 15 confirmed, replied Dr. Elena Foster, Earth's leading expert on alien technology. She had joined Jake's team 5 years ago. The Devourers are learning from each attack. They're getting faster and stronger. Ambassador Kethvar, now very old even for a Zephyrian, spoke in his quiet voice. Our combined fleets cannot stop them. We have tried everything. Plasma weapons, quantum bombs, even dimensional rifts. Nothing works. Jake had seen the battle reports. Every species had sent their best ships and weapons. The results were always the same. The Devourers would adapt to any attack within minutes. They turned the weapons against the people who used them. What about the Titan defense grid? Asked Captain Ryan Clark, commander of the experimental human ship UES Defiance. Surely that can hold them. General Thaxmore's alien face showed despair. The Titans fell yesterday. Their orbital fortresses lasted 6 hours. The Devourers learned how to use the defense grid against itself. The room became very quiet. The Titan defense grid was supposed to be impossible to break. It had protected the inner worlds for 200 years. How long do we have? Jake asked. 3 months, Dr. Foster replied. Maybe 4 if we're lucky. They're moving through the spiral arm toward Earth, Ethros Prime, and the other core worlds. An alien that looked like a giant crystal spoke up. Perhaps we should consider evacuation. Move our people to the outer rim. And then what? Asked another delegate. Wait for them to eat the whole galaxy? There's nowhere to run. Jake listened to the arguments. Every species was suggesting the same things. Run away. Hide. Accept defeat. It was logical thinking, but it was also giving up. He thought about the neutron star rescue 15 years ago. His crew had thought that mission was impossible too, but humans had done it anyway. What if we're thinking about this wrong? Jake said. The room turned to look at him. Ambassador Kethvar leaned forward with interest. Explain, said General Thaxmore. Every species here is fighting the Devourers the same way. Big ships, powerful weapons, logical tactics. But the Devourers are machines. They learn from logic. What if we tried something that didn't make sense? You mean irrational tactics? Asked the crystal alien. That is impossible. How does one fight irrationally? Dr. Foster understood what Jake was thinking. The Admiral means human tactics. Humans sometimes do things that other species think are crazy, like flying into a neutron star to save strangers, Ambassador Kethvar said with something that might have been a smile. Exactly, Jake replied. The Devourers expect logical responses. They've adapted to every reasonable strategy. But what if we used unreasonable strategies? Captain Clark laughed. You want to defeat ancient machine intelligence by being stupid? Not stupid, Jake corrected. Unpredictable. Humans have always solved problems by trying things that shouldn't work. General Thaxmore looked confused. This makes no sense. How can tactics that should not work actually work? Because sometimes the wrong answer is the right answer, Dr. Foster explained. Human military history is full of victories that came from doing the opposite of what was smart. Ambassador Kethvar stood up slowly. His old body moved carefully, but his mind was still sharp. My friends, I have studied humans for 15 years. They saved my life by doing something that no logical species would attempt. Perhaps Admiral Martinez has a point. What are you suggesting? Asked Counselor Vash. Kethvar looked directly at Jake. The Zephyrian Collective owes humanity a life debt from the neutron star rescue. We have waited 15 years to repay this debt. I believe the time has come. Ambassador, you don't need to, Jake started to say. Yes, we do, Kethvar interrupted. My people will give humanity everything we have. Our technology, our resources, our ships. But in return, you must do what only humans can do. You must find a way to defeat the impossible. The room was silent. Every alien was staring at the humans. Jake felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. Billions of people were going to die if this didn't work. But running away or hiding would only delay the end. What do you need? Asked Dr. Foster. Time to think, Jake replied, and permission to try things that will probably kill us all. You have both, said Ambassador Kethvar. The Zephyrian fleet will buy you time. Our scientists will work with your people, and when you are ready, we will follow you into battle, even if your plan seems insane. Captain Clark shook his head. This is crazy. We're going to fight the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy by being unpredictable? Yes, Jake said simply, because crazy is what humans do best. As the meeting ended, aliens began talking in small groups. Some looked hopeful. Others seemed to think the humans had lost their minds. Ambassador Kethvar approached Jake privately. Admiral, I hope you understand what you have promised. I know, Jake replied. But 15 years ago, you taught me something important. Sometimes the right thing to do is also the impossible thing to do. And if you fail, Jake smiled the same smile he had worn at the neutron star. Then we'll fail doing something amazing. The old Zephyrian nodded. That is very human thinking. Let us begin. The secret research base on Luna was hidden inside an old mining tunnel. Admiral Jake Martinez walked through corridors that buzzed with activity. Human and Zephyrian scientists worked together at every station. They had been here for 6 weeks, and time was running out. Show me what you found, Jake said to Dr. Elena Foster as he entered the main laboratory. Elena pointed to a large screen showing recordings from Devourer battles. We've studied every fight, every attack pattern, every adaptation. The machines have one weakness, but it's almost impossible to use. Tell me. They can't adapt to completely random actions. Their programming needs patterns to learn from. If there's no pattern, they get confused. Colonel Mike Davis, a former Special Forces soldier, looked up from his workstation. The problem is that every species thinks logically, even when they try to be random. The Devourers can find patterns in anything that makes sense. Jake watched the battle recordings. He saw Krillian ships using complex tactics that looked random but followed mathematical rules. He saw ethereal forces trying chaos attacks that still had logical foundations. The machines figured out every strategy within minutes, Elena continued. They turned the weapons back on the attackers. It's like they can predict anything that has a reason behind it. So we need actions that have no reason? Jake asked. Exactly. But that's almost impossible. Even humans think logically most of the time. Captain Ryan Clark entered the lab carrying a cup of coffee and looking tired. I've been reading human military history all week. Elena's right. Our best victories came from doing things that seemed stupid but had clever reasons behind them. Mike Davis disagreed. Not always. What about the Battle of Bunker Hill? Or the charge of the Light Brigade? Some of our famous moments were just people being stubborn and refusing to quit. Those weren't victories, Ryan pointed out. They were in the long run, Mike replied. Sometimes humans win by losing in a way that inspires others to keep fighting. Jake found this interesting. What do you mean? I mean, humans don't always fight to win immediately. Sometimes we fight to prove a point. Sometimes we attack because we're angry. Sometimes we do things just because someone said we couldn't. Elena frowned. That's not logical. Exactly, Mike said with a grin. And that's why it might work. Engineer Katie Williams joined the discussion. She had been working on weapons design. I've been thinking about this all wrong. We're trying to make weapons that work randomly. But what if we made weapons that are supposed to fail? Explain, Jake said. Every weapon is designed to be efficient and effective. But what if we made weapons that waste energy, miss targets on purpose, and sometimes hurt the user? The Devourers would try to copy these patterns, but the patterns are designed to fail. A young Zephyrian scientist named Veltar spoke up in his musical voice. This concept is difficult for my people to understand. Why would anyone create weapons that do not work properly? Because, said Mike Davis, if the enemy copies your broken weapons, they break too. Tony Baker, the squadron leader who would pilot the first test mission, had been quiet until now. I've been practicing flying in ways that make no sense, spinning when I should go straight, slowing down when I should speed up, breaking formation for no reason. It feels wrong. How wrong? Jake asked. Like every instinct I have is screaming at me to stop. But maybe that's the point. If it feels wrong to me, a human, it must be impossible for machines to understand. Dr. Foster pulled up new data on her screen. We've run computer simulations. Normal tactics have a 0% chance of success against the Devourers. But truly random actions, the computers can't even calculate the odds. Because there are no odds, Jake realized. If there's no pattern, there's no way to predict success or failure. Lieutenant Julie Anderson, who had volunteered for the boarding party missions, raised her hand. Sir, I need to ask, are we really going to attack alien machines with crowbars and explosives? That's the plan, Mike confirmed. High-tech weapons have computer systems that the Devourers can hack, but a crowbar is just a metal bar, there's nothing to hack. And the explosives? Chemical reactions that we set off manually. No electronics, no computers, just humans deciding when to push the button. Jake looked around the room at his team. I need to be honest with everyone. This plan sounds insane because it is insane. We're going to attack the most advanced machines in the galaxy using tactics that any military academy would fail us for. What are our chances? Asked Captain Clark. Unknown, Elena replied. The computers can't calculate odds for something that has no logical basis. Veltar spoke again. Admiral Martinez, my people have agreed to provide our most advanced ships for this mission. But I must ask, do you truly believe this will work? Jake thought about the question for a long moment. Veltar, 15 years ago, I flew into a neutron star to save your ambassador. Everyone said it was impossible. The computers said we would all die. But we did it anyway. How? By not listening to the computers, by doing what felt right instead of what made sense, by being human. The room was quiet as everyone considered this. So our plan is to be as human as possible? Tony asked. That's exactly our plan, Jake confirmed. We're going to fight like humans have always fought, with stubbornness instead of strategy, with courage instead of calculation, with heart instead of logic. Mike Davis stood up and grinned. Sir, that's the dumbest plan I've ever heard. Good, Jake replied. That means it might work. Katie Williams looked at her weapon designs. I can have the Chaos weapons ready in 1 week. They'll be unreliable, inefficient, and dangerous to use. Perfect. Tony Baker checked his flight training schedule. My pilots can learn to fly badly in 2 weeks. We'll be the worst squadron in space. Excellent. Julie Anderson reviewed her boarding party equipment. We'll attack their command ships with tools from a hardware store and chemical explosives that sometimes don't work. Outstanding. Dr. Foster compiled all the data. The final battle plan will violate every rule of space combat. It will risk our own ships unnecessarily. It will waste resources and put our people in danger for no logical reason. Admiral Martinez smiled. Then it's ready. Because if there's one thing humans are good at, it's doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. The teams returned to their work with new energy. For the first time in weeks, they had hope. Not because their plan was good, but because their plan was so bad that it might just work. The Helix Nebula was beautiful and deadly. Colored gases swirled around ancient stars, creating a maze of light and shadow. It was here that the human fleet would make their last stand against the Devourers. Admiral Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the enemy approach. The Devourer swarm looked like a dark cloud of metal and death. There were thousands of ships, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. All ships, this is Admiral Martinez. He spoke into his communicator. Today we do something that no species has ever attempted. We're going to fight the Devourers by fighting like humans. Remember your training. Do the wrong thing. Be unpredictable. Make no sense. Captain Ryan Clark sat in the pilot's seat, his hands shaking slightly. Sir, I still think this is crazy. It is, Jake agreed. That's why it might work. The first wave of Devourer ships came forward like a wall of darkness. They moved in perfect formation, their weapons charging with deadly energy. Squadron leaders, begin attack pattern chaos, Jake ordered. Lieutenant Tony Baker led his fighter squadron in the strangest attack run in military history. Instead of flying straight at the enemy, his ships spun in circles, flew upside down, and formed patterns that looked like ancient Earth animals. Blue Squadron, form up like a duck, Tony called out over the radio. A what? Replied one of his pilots. A duck. You know that bird from Earth. Flap your wings. The human fighters arranged themselves to look like a flying duck and approached the Devourers while making quacking sounds over the radio. The Devourer ships stopped moving. Their sensors tried to understand what they were seeing. Enemy fighters that moved like animals. Weapons that made no strategic sense. Their computers began working harder, trying to find the pattern. Direct hit on confusion, reported Dr. Elena Foster from her station. The Devourers are scanning us repeatedly. They can't figure out what we're doing. Phase 2, Jake announced. All ships, ram the enemy. Captain Clark turned to stare at him. Sir, did you just order us to crash into them? That's exactly what I ordered. But don't do it efficiently. Do it badly. The human ships charged forward, but instead of ramming the Devourers properly, they hit them at wrong angles, scraped along their hulls, and bounced off like rubber balls. Some ships deliberately missed their targets and crashed into empty space. The Devourers tried to copy this tactic. Their ships began ramming each other, expecting some hidden advantage, but since there was no advantage, they just damaged themselves while accomplishing nothing. Enemy fleet showing signs of system confusion, Elena reported with excitement. They're trying to analyze our ramming technique. Commander Julie Anderson's voice came over the radio from her boarding shuttle. Assault team approaching Devourer command ship. Beginning hardware store attack. Julie and her team had trained for this moment. They carried no high-tech weapons, no computer-guided systems, just crowbars, hammers, chemical explosives, and pure human determination. Remember, Julie told her team as their shuttle attached to the enemy ship, we're not here to be effective. We're here to be confusing. They cut through the Devourer hull using welding torches and entered the ship. The interior was filled with mechanical corridors and computer systems. Everything was logical and organized. Start breaking things randomly, Julie ordered. Don't target important systems. Just break whatever you feel like breaking. Her team spread out and began attacking the ship with their primitive tools. Private Ben Torres used his crowbar to pry open panels that didn't need to be opened. Sergeant Lisa Murphy hammered on walls for no reason. Corporal Alex Norton set off small explosives in empty rooms. The Devourer ship's computer systems went crazy trying to understand the attack. Why were the humans destroying useless components? Why were they ignoring the important systems? What was the strategic purpose of hitting walls with hammers? Meanwhile, in space, the battle continued in ways that made no military sense. All ships, fire your weapons at nothing, Jake ordered. The human fleet began shooting at empty space, at their own allies, and sometimes at themselves. The weapons were Katie Williams' special chaos designs. They worked randomly, sometimes firing backward, sometimes changing color for no reason, sometimes playing music instead of shooting. The Devourers copied this behavior. Soon, the enemy fleet was shooting at empty space too, wasting enormous amounts of energy trying to understand the human strategy. Enemy weapon systems showing critical errors, Elena reported. They're trying to reverse engineer our chaos weapons, but there's nothing to reverse engineer. Lieutenant Ben Torres led a fighter attack that involved flying in formation while reciting ancient Earth poetry over the radio. His squadron spelled out the words, "Roses are red, violets are blue. We're attacking you, and we don't know why," with their flight pattern. The Devourers spent precious processing power trying to decode the hidden meaning in the poetry. They analyzed the word patterns, the squadron formations, and the emotional content of the verses. Their computers worked so hard on this puzzle that they began overheating. "Sir, the enemy command ship is requesting communication," reported Communications Officer Steve Parker. "Put them through," Jake said. A mechanical voice filled the bridge. "Human fleet, explain your tactical purpose. Our analysis systems cannot process your behavior patterns." Jake smiled. "That's because we don't have tactical purposes. We're just doing stuff." "Clarify. Doing stuff. You know, flying around, shooting things, breaking your ship with crowbars, human stuff." There was a long pause. "This does not compute. All military actions must have strategic objectives." "Not human military actions," Jake replied cheerfully. "Sometimes we fight just because we're angry. Sometimes we attack because we're bored. Sometimes we do things because our friends said we couldn't. This is impossible." "Exactly. Welcome to fighting humans." The communication ended. Across the battlefield, Devourer ships began shutting down their weapon systems. Their computers were overloading trying to find logic in human chaos. "Sir," Elena said with wonder in her voice, "the enemy fleet is experiencing cascading system failures. They're shutting down their own networks to prevent logical contamination." "What does that mean?" Ryan asked. "It means," Jake said with a huge grin, "that we're winning by losing badly." Julie's voice came over the radio from inside the Devourer command ship. "Admiral, we've successfully confused their main computer to death. It tried so hard to understand why we were hammering random walls that it crashed itself." The largest Devourer ship, a massive construction the size of a moon, suddenly went dark. One by one, other enemy ships followed. The ancient machine intelligence that had destroyed civilizations was shutting itself down rather than try to process human behavior. "All ships, continue being human," Jake ordered. "Keep doing things that make no sense. They can't handle it." The battle ended not with explosions or laser fire, but with the enemy fleet simply turning off. The Devourers, faced with tactics that had no logic, had chosen to shut down rather than be contaminated by human thinking. "Sir," Ryan said in amazement, "I think we actually won." "Of course we did," Jake replied. "We're human. Impossible is what we do." 1 week after the impossible victory, Admiral Jake Martinez stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Coalition headquarters. The same room where species had gathered in despair was now filled with celebration and wonder. Representatives from dozens of worlds had come to see the humans who defeated the Devourers by being illogical. Some looked grateful. Others seemed confused. A few appeared frightened of what humans might do next. "The threat is over," announced General Thaxmore of the Krillian Empire. His forearms gestured at holographic displays showing the Devourer fleet drifting powerless in space. "The ancient machines have shut down completely. Our scientists believe they will never reactivate." Jake smiled as he remembered the battle. The Devourers had been so confused by human tactics that they chose to turn themselves off rather than try to understand chaos. Their computer brains simply could not process actions that had no logical purpose. "How did you know it would work?" asked Counselor Vash from the Ethereal Collective. "We didn't," Jake admitted. "That was the point. If we had known it would work, then it wouldn't have been truly random." Dr. Elena Foster stood near a table covered with reports from the battlefield. The Devourers' adaptive programming was designed to counter logical strategies. When faced with complete chaos, their systems couldn't find patterns to learn from. They overloaded trying to solve problems that had no solutions. Captain Ryan Clark, still recovering from wounds received when he deliberately crashed his ship into 3 Devourer vessels, laughed. The best part was watching their faces when Julie's team started attacking their command ship with hammers. Commander Julie Anderson, her arm in a sling but grinning widely, nodded. "That computer kept asking us why we were hitting random walls. We told it we were redecorating. It spent an hour trying to analyze our interior design strategy." The alien delegates murmured among themselves. They were trying to understand how chaos could be a weapon, how failure could lead to victory, how being wrong could be right. Ambassador Kethvar, the elderly Zephyrian who had started this entire story 15 years ago, slowly approached the center of the room. His old body moved carefully, but his mind was sharp and his voice was clear. "My friends," he said, "we are here to witness the completion of a life debt. 15 years ago, humans risked everything to save 12 Zephyrians from a collapsing star. Today, those same humans have saved the entire galaxy from an enemy that could not be defeated by logic." He turned to face Jake directly. "Admiral Martinez, when you rescued me and my people, I declared that the Zephyrian Collective owed humanity a life debt. We have spent 15 years trying to find a way to repay this debt. We gave you our technology, our resources, our friendship, but we never imagined that the debt would be repaid by you saving everyone." Jake felt embarrassed by the attention. "Ambassador, you and your people helped us win this battle. The debt was paid by working together." "No," Kethvar said firmly. "The debt was paid by humans doing what only humans can do. You found a way to defeat the impossible by being impossible yourselves." A new voice spoke from the back of the room. "But what does this mean for the galaxy's future?" Everyone turned to see a young delegate from the Crystal Worlds. She looked worried. "Humans have shown they can defeat any enemy by being unpredictable. How do we know they won't use this power against us?" The room became quiet. It was a fair question. If humans could confuse ancient machines to death, what could they do to other species? Jake understood their concern. "I'll be honest with you. Humans are dangerous. We do things that don't make sense. We take risks that other species think are crazy. We solve problems by breaking rules." Some delegates looked more worried. "But," Jake continued, "we're also the species that flies into neutron stars to save strangers. We're the people who fight impossible battles to protect others. We're dangerous to our enemies, but we're loyal to our friends." Dr. Foster stepped forward. "That's why we're establishing the Institute for Impossible Solutions. Humans and aliens working together to solve problems that normal thinking can't handle. When the galaxy faces challenges that require unconventional solutions, we'll be ready." Captain Clark added, "We're also training other species to think like humans when necessary. Not all the time, just when facing enemies or problems that can't be beaten with logic." "You want to teach us to be irrational?" asked the Crystal Delegate. "We want to teach you to be human when being human is what's needed," Jake replied. "Most of the time, your logical thinking is better than ours, but sometimes the logical answer is wrong, and someone needs to try something crazy." Lieutenant Tony Baker, who had led the squadron that attacked while reciting poetry, spoke up. "It's like having different tools for different jobs. You use a hammer for nails and a screwdriver for screws. Sometimes you need human thinking for human problems." Ambassador Kethvar nodded approvingly. "This is wisdom. The galaxy needs both Zephyrian logic and human chaos. We are stronger together than apart." "What about exploration?" asked another delegate. "Will humans lead new missions to unknown space?" "Absolutely," said Captain Clark. I'm taking command of the first joint species exploration fleet next month. When we find new challenges that require thinking outside normal rules, we'll be ready. Jake looked around the room at all the different alien faces. Some still seemed confused by human behavior, but most looked hopeful. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the wrong way was the right way. There's one more thing, Jake announced. Humans have a saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. But we're adding a new saying for the galaxy. When the impossible becomes necessary, call the humans. They'll find a way, even if it shouldn't work. General Thaxmore's alien face showed something that might have been amusement. That is a very human philosophy. Thank you, Jake replied with a smile. As the ceremony ended, delegates began forming small groups to discuss cooperation agreements. The Krillians wanted human advisors for their military. The Ethereals requested teachers for their logic schools. Even the Crystal Worlds asked for help with problems their computers couldn't solve. Ambassador Kethvar approached Jake one final time. Admiral, the life debt is repaid beyond all expectations, but I have one more request. What's that? Promise me that humans will never stop being human. The galaxy needs your chaos, your stubbornness, your willingness to do impossible things. Promise me you'll never become too logical. Jake laughed. Ambassador, you've met humans. Do we really seem like the kind of species that would ever become too logical? Kethvar made a sound that was the Zephyrian equivalent of laughter. No, Admiral. I believe the galaxy will always have humans doing impossible things for impossible reasons. Good, Jake replied. Because impossible is what we do best. As the delegates left the hall, Jake looked out at the stars through the great windows. Somewhere out there were new challenges, new problems that would require impossible solutions. When that time came, humans would be ready. After all, they had just defeated the most advanced machines in the galaxy by hitting them with hammers and flying around like ducks. What could be more impossible than that?